Hi, it's Lerald, and in this video I'm going to talk about patch 11.0.5 and the 20th anniversary event now that we've had several days to play around with it. I'm going to cover the good, the bad, the weird, and the delays. But first, don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, so let's kind of start with, I think, the biggest thing that has been noticed by the community in patch 11.0.5, and that would be the bugs. There have been so many. There have been Wowhead posts about them, tons of discussion about them on Twitter and the forums and Reddit and wherever else. There have been, just going off of some of my notes, shaman balance issues galore. They had to nerf lightning rod for elemental shaman by 50%. There is a bunch of class tuning coming in the coming week. I'll just kind of hit on the quick notes of tank stuff. So in changing Sand Lane to be tied to Dancing Rune Weapon instead of Vampiric Blood, I think it makes more sense in terms of like functionality for Blood DK, although less in terms of thematic design, but it also just reduced the uptime of the whole Sand Lane tree. So it just nerfed a tree that was already underperforming. So they're having to massively buff that. They're also just buffing Blood DK a whole bunch. You know, whatever, man. Definitely not feeling great about the decision to play Brewmaster this tier over Blood. No changes to Bear. Didn't feel like they need them. None to DH. Don't feel like Vengeance needs them. Brewmaster Monk, no changes. And just to kind of look at the representation right now, that's probably in the best place to do it. If we just look at the like Mythic Plus representation, timed Mythic Plus leaderboards, let's just say like 12 and up. As you can see, there's really pretty decent representation of non-warrior tanks. Like, warrior's obviously the best one, right? So easiest to play, strongest, I think the most fun in Mythic Plus, so it's going to be the best represented. If you exclude them and you just look at the four that are in between them and the worst, I think the representation's pretty good. The difference between like Guardian Druids at number 2 and Vengeance Demon Hunters at number 4 is pretty close. I think there's actually pretty decent class balance other than the two outliers. But good lord, Brewmaster Monk is god-awful in Mythic Plus. There's really not anything else to say about it. It's represented decently in Raid. It's definitely starting to trend down, and I think a large part of that is because it is so unfathomably bad in Mythic Plus. You know, again, I've said this before, but log on to a warrior that's like 10, 15 item levels below the monk and do literally the exact same key, and like, it's so easy I could turn off my monitor and have an easier time than I am on the monk. So definitely not good things on that front, and just absolutely no acknowledgement of that on the part of Blizzard at all. Also no acknowledgement of prop pally mana issues, which isn't great. That's something that they're definitely still irritated about, and I think that's totally justifiable. And then finally some big warrior buffs. But like, just looking at all of the bugs that have occurred, there was an insane outlaw rogue exploit that allowed guilds to get a bunch of kills that they really didn't earn in raid, get a lot of high level Mythic Plus pushing that wasn't really earned. I think a lot of that has been reverted, but obviously not great that that can occur. There are lots of raid bugs. Bosses will go AFK on the boss that we're working on in Mythic, Silken Court. I wanted to call him Crimson Court. That's not it. The spell visuals will just not be aligned with the mechanic's actual hitbox. There will be bosses that will reset their skill priorities randomly. And as you can see, there's just so many hot fixes fixing bugs and fixing bugs and fixing bugs and fixing bugs. And I'm glad that some of these bugs, or I'm glad that all of these bugs are being fixed, but there are some that have just gone on for way too long. Like this one that made me really feel like I was going insane. The Templar Paladin Hammer of Light GCD just not being hasted. A lot of stuff like that. Now, there were also a bunch of recent hotfix buffs to classes over the last month running up to the patch for classes like Warrior that just simply weren't included in this patch. Like, the versioning of the patch was just wrong, and this was feedback that was given by Warrior DPS in the community, and it was just ignored. And so, as you can see, they're now having to kind of re-implement all of that stuff again. So this looks like these massive buffs to Warrior. I think it's about 8% more DPS in single target for Arms and Fury, and given where they're at right now, that's not gonna like make them gods. It's gonna bring them back up to being mediocre, I think. So I would say, just generally speaking, from like a numbers and just implementation standpoint, the patch has not been very well received. It hasn't been great. And then to top that off, Blizzard has dropped not one but 2 store mounts. Not exactly 2 store mounts. There's this obvious $90 Brutosaur. It is an auction house and mailbox mount, which is cool, but you know, it's $90. It is more than the game itself. It's more than most AAA game titles, even if you're buying the like a higher end version of it. And then they also dropped in this $30 30th anniversary mount bundle, which is like 4 okay looking mounts for regular WoW and then 4 for classic. And they seem to have pretty much the same model between the two, as far as I can tell, at least very similar. You know, so it's sort of 4 mounts for, I don't know, $30, quite a bit. And then also a charity pet, which I have nothing negative to ever say about charity pets. I think they're nice, and I think this guy's really cute, and yeah, I think that's just kind of cool. Now, the decision to release store mounts, the decision to release a charity pet, anything like that, is definitely not made by the people who designed the game, but the timing is definitely unfortunate, especially on the $90 Brutosaur reskin. I think that really has not landed well in the community's perception. You know, definitely a lot of negativity about it being as expensive as it is, even though I guess if you really want to look at it in terms of like buying WoW tokens back in BFA, the Brutosaur back then cost like $300 or something by comparison, so I guess this is cheaper, but it still feels like a lot, man. So with all that stuff about the patch, you know, kind of having come and gone and not really landed all that well, now I want to move over to talking about the anniversary event. And unfortunately, there's a lot of built-in time gating in the anniversary event as well. As we can see with this achievement here, it really represents it very nicely. Token Collector. Once you've collected 100 Bronze Celebration tokens during the 20th anniversary, you are then able to get Bronze Celebration tokens from repeatable 20th anniversary events. So there is a really helpful Wowhead article that's, I think, pinned on the front page of the site that kind of shows you all of these celebration token sources that are available each week. And basically, you're able to get 1 to 3 coins from a wide range of activities throughout the game. This is a combination of things here at the event, doing different weekly quests here at the event. Will all give you anywhere from 1 to 3 coins. I've done all of them along with my channel manager, Sunset. We even did Classic Alterac Valley, a thing we didn't really enjoy, but you know, it gives 3 coins, gonna do it, sure. That gave 18 celebration tokens, and then there's a variety of other things you can do, you know, weekly quests in Kazalgar, Theater Troupe, Awakening the Machine, that kind of thing, that all give anywhere from 1 to 3 back in Kazalgar. Now, I think the thing that's frustrating for me is that there is no simple, easy, repeatable way to just farm them right from the start of the event, like spam running time walking dungeons or something like that. That would have made me happy. Now, as I said, it's not actually as bad as it seems. Like, you're not hard time gated completely. Once you've hit that 100 token mark, you'll be able to spam run them, and then also once you have purchased your first tier set transmog, you will be able to then have your second one cost less, and then after you buy your second, your third, and all the rest will cost even less. But with that being said, I've done pretty much everything there is to do other than a couple of PvP things in Kazalgar, like maybe 5 coins worth of PvP that I will absolutely not be doing, and I have 44 coins total, and these are all once per account. And the cost for an ensemble is 60. So even if I'd done those PvP things that I don't want to do, I still wouldn't be able to get this fantastic looking transmog. And that's very frustrating to me because, you know, ultimately this is weekly time gating. It's the thing that people were most upset about in Shadowlands. And here it is. It's back at this big fun celebration event. You know, if my goal was to make people mad, I would do this exact implementation with 0 changes. Now, in terms of evaluating all of the other things that are going on here, I would say I generally like most of them. I think that the time walking dungeons are really good. Classic time walking was something that I was very excited about, and I had pretty high hopes for classic time walking. And I think that for the most part, everything has pretty much lived up to my expectations. Dire Maul certainly has. Live Stratholme actually exceeded my expectations. I didn't really think I liked Live Stratholme all that much, and then I got back in there and I realized it's actually pretty fun. I had pretty low expectations on Deadmines. I think being just chain stunned throughout about half of that dungeon was really not very fun. I didn't play Alliance in vanilla, so I don't really have a nostalgia for that place like a lot of players do. And, you know, if you do have a lot of nostalgia for that place, I would only recommend tanking 1 Deadmines and being stunned for like 40% of the dungeon, and I think it'll change your mind. But the one thing that maybe did kind of underwhelm a bit for me was Undead Stratholme. I love that place. I really had high hopes for it. And then I went in there on a prop paladin, and I was silenced for a huge amount of the dungeon, and it actually was a little disappointing. But again, kind of the only disappointment of all of the time walking. I would say, generally speaking, big fan, think it was a real success. Kinda wouldn't mind seeing some classic or older dungeons like that in a future Mythic Plus season, maybe with lots and lots of changes, of course, but kinda seems like a fun idea. There was also the Blackrock Depths LFR. This is a raid that exists on LFR, normal and heroic difficulties, and it had to be nerfed significantly on normal and heroic. Haven't bothered to like go in there and pug it on any of those difficulties, but just doing it on LFR, I thought the idea that you can level through it is really cool. And the scaling on it is absolutely bricked. In one of the wings of LFR, there was a, I don't know, like level 40 Mistweaver monk that was spinning crane kicking one time and just one-shotting bosses. So that wasn't as great, but for the other wings where it was more like a normal group doing them, I thought they were pretty fun. You know, it's LFR, it's not anything amazing, but I thought that just generally speaking that the Blackrock Depths was actually a pretty fun LFR experience, and definitely something like fun and different. I liked that. There's also the Codex of Chromie, another kind of just weird different event that's gone through a little bit of tuning, I think, just to make it so that more DPS can fit in. Kind of just an event where you run around and kind of do more or less like world quests or just like spam AoE farm stuff, but I kind of like it. Then there's a little boss at the end. It's sort of like an abbreviated dungeon. I think it's pretty good for what it is, but not something I'm really like signing up to spam run over and over again. I definitely would rather do like more time walking dungeon stuff than Codex of Chromie, but I'm glad that they threw that in there just as something that's a bit of a different wrinkle. There's also the return of a bunch of world bosses. I found these to be pretty laggy and not really all that great. I think Sunset and I both agree that they basically just kind of spam crowd control on everybody that's fighting them, which is kind of annoying. So these didn't really like land as all that great for me, but I never really think WoW's working all that well when you're doing world bosses and everybody's getting like 1 FPS and the game is completely lagging out. That's never really been WoW at its best for me. Now, as for some of the events around the celebration area, I think Mount Mania has definitely been the one that we really like the most. You know, it's kind of hit and miss. I've had a couple of Mount Mania games where I showed up and I had pretty much all of the mounts. I'd have like 13 of the mounts and I'd win, and that feels good. And then you find out that for your reward for winning is nothing. And then there are times where it's just like PvP mounts galore and I have like 2 out of the 15 mounts. But again, just kind of lighthearted, fun, silly stuff. I think that's pretty good. And I feel pretty similarly about the Fashion Frenzy. It's sort of just a stripped down version of the Trial of Style, basically the Trial of Style, except instead of kind of the complex voting system that occurs in that and it being a limited number of people, it's just one big free-for-all of Trial of Style. I think that's okay. I'm kind of recording this on a weekend in the middle of the night, so there's not really a lot of people around here at all right now, and I think a lot of that is caused by the fact that this is a weekly, sort of a lot of these rewards are all weekly limited instead of being stuff you could spam farm for. I think there probably would be more people if there was more possibility to spam farm in the way that I would like without any sort of time gating. Now, over at this wing of the celebration area, we have the Lore Walker Cho story time, and I thought these were cute. The associated achievement with them that is part of the big meta achievement, the A Cool 20 Years. I think most of these achievements for this are pretty effective. The only one that I thought really didn't work very well was the Peanut Gallery, where you have to react to Lore Walker Cho's stories 50 times. And I think if it had been just sit and listen through his stories, you know, all 3 of his stories, I think if it had just been this avid listener achievement, that would be pretty good. But because you have to actually hit your extra action button to interact with him as he's telling his story, depending on the story, you can get like, I think 7 to 11 interactions per story. So you're going to be sitting there, if you're absolutely locked in and min-maxing the whole time, anywhere from like 5 to 6 times through this. I was not doing that every time. So it took me like 8 or 9 listens to actually get this achievement. And by the time that I had done that, I was pretty bored of it. And I figured if it just had been like 3 or 4, I would have said, you know, hey, that's cute. I liked it, but it overstayed its welcome pretty hard for me. So in terms of engaging with the content here at the celebration, we knocked out pretty much everything we needed to do on the first night, with just a little bit left over that we managed over the next couple of days. And, I think that's a little disappointing. I would have liked to have kind of come out here and spent more time doing stuff out here. Something we were excited to do was this assistant to the assistant guest relations, whatever, this achievement, and I saved the party and I got all I got was this hat. Like, these achievements, these little storytelling achievements, and unfortunately, as it says in the big announcement post, these are also things that are not available until October 28th, and then even more of it opens up on the 4th. So this is stuff that is very deliberately time-gated, more than 1 week beyond the start of this celebration, which I think is really, really disappointing. So in terms of how I feel about this event, I think a lot of aspects of it are pretty good. It's a little disappointing, if I'm being honest, and I think that is entirely the result of the design of the currency system and the reward structure. Like, just to be clear, I really like all of these transmogs. I like them a crazy amount. I think they look so insanely good. I would like to get every single one of them. It is pretty disappointing that I can't just be working on getting all of them right now, but I've done everything there is to do this week. There's nothing left to do. I just literally have to sit around and wait. There's really two problems going on here at once. Currency acquisition is too slow and item costs are too high. If you do literally every single piece of content that rewards the celebration tokens, like even the PvP stuff that I'm not interested in, you'll have enough tokens to buy one transmog set next week, and then one the week after, and then a third the week after that. This means no toys, no other stuff for 3 weeks of this event going on if you're interested in the transmog sets, and you should be. I mean, they look great. Look at them. Awesome, right? Now, once you have farmed 100 coins the slow way, so 2 more weeks from now, you will be capable of farming them through the normal methods, spam running time, walking dungeons, basically. This takes about 3 weeks if you do everything that's available to farm coins each week, and maybe 4 or 5 weeks if you skip some stuff. There's absolutely zero reason to time gate currency acquisition when it's tied to transmog, stuff that looks like this. It's purely cosmetic. Time gating is always an unpopular design in WoW, and rightly so. I think it's disrespectful to the player's time. It's boring, and I think worst of all, it really just kills the hype and momentum that players have built up for themselves for an event like this. There's good-looking pets that I've missed in the past that I would love to get. There are so many things around this area that cost this currency that I would love to pick up. I would love to have all of these swords and shields and cloaks, and maybe not this helm so much, but there's so much stuff that I would like to have that obviously I'm going to have to wait for weeks, if not months, in order to get. It just is kind of a big buzzkill to get all juiced up to farm up this amazing looking transmog set and be told, no, you've got to wait until November 5th. Blizzard, no, it's transmog. It's not player power that needs to be slowly rolled out over a month or multiple months of grinding. It looks cool, right? I mean, it does look cool. I can't argue that it doesn't look cool, but that's all it does. This kind of arbitrary delay is really disappointing in an event that is supposed to be a fun, lighthearted celebration of the best aspects of the last 20 years of WoW. They brought back the worst part of Shadowlands. The way to build a system like this that pleases everyone without just giving all the transmogs away for free on day one is to have a combination of once-a-week rewards that are proportionally much more rewarding and infinitely grindable content that is a lot less rewarding. For example, weekly quests that give 10 or 15 coins each versus time-walking bosses that give 1 coin each. This way, you have an option for people who want to slowly work toward rewards if they're not trying to go nuts, or if you have somebody like me who wants to go absolutely sicko mode and grind like crazy and get all the transmogs on week 1, they have the potential to just lock in and farm all day for that. And for what it's worth, this is sort of how the system works once you hit 100 coins, just without those rewarding weekly quests. But why time gate it in the first place? Like, straight up, I would love to be recording this video wearing this transmog instead of just looking at it. But I won't be for another week, and even then on just the monk. I legitimately want all of these transmog sets, but I don't know whether it's going to be possible for me to get them all and also get all the other rewards that I want, like the transmogs for weapons or the pets and so on. What I do know for certain is that I won't be getting anything from this event this week, and that really stinks. This is unfortunate because I think other than the design of the reward structure, this event is really successful. It's by far the biggest type of celebration event Blizzard has ever done. There is stuff going on every 15 minutes here. There is so much stuff all around the zone to engage with for a day or two on a weekly reset. And it does feel like a party when there are tons of people around. But the reward structure is bad. It's really, really bad. And the reward structure is the primary reason why you do this kind of content. I think it's a good object lesson on the complex and interconnected nature of the systems in a game like WoW that a poorly designed reward structure can undermine a lot of the otherwise great work that's on display from the team. My excitement definitely turned to disappointment because of this. I like a food metaphor and I have one here. It's like if you made yourself a big ice cream sundae and then right as you were about to take a bite, someone ran in and squirted a bunch of mustard on it. It's not ruined, right? You could scrape it off. You can sacrifice some ice cream and eventually enjoy yourself and still have a good time. It's gonna be fine, but it is disappointing initially. And that's pretty much how I feel about this event. Pretty good content, I really like it. I do think there is a lot of fun and cute stuff here that makes me happy. But the reward structure is really bad. It blows chunks. Critical failure. Ask me how I feel about this event in a month, and I imagine I'll be a lot more positive than I am right now. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.